With all that's going on in the world, one can only think of the clutter that we're accumulating, not only in our house, in our closets, in our kitchens, in our wardrobes, but also in our head. And so I've invited Jane Stoller, Organized Jane, to kind of help me sort through all of this. Nice to see you, Jane.
Yes, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, that setup may have been a little convoluted, but the truth is that in the world that we live in right now, we are kind of facing a clutter mountain of sorts in our heads and in our lives. How do we clear it up?
It's especially now because a lot of us are actually working from home, we're spending more time in our homes, and we're realizing that we have a lot of clutter because we're surrounded by it constantly. And it's affecting, like you mentioned, our mental capacity to get tasks done. It's affecting the way we do work. It's affecting a lot of things. So now we're faced with it more than ever.
It's interesting to me that you're Canadian Swiss. When you introduce yourself, I'm Organized Jane. I'm Swiss Canadian or Canadian Swiss, one or the other.
Yeah.
Swiss have always been known to be very organized. Do you think you were born with this ability?
Well, I've done a lot of research on, when you become organized and the psychology behind it. And they say at 6 years old, in between 6 and 8 is actually when you can actually see kids being either organized or disorganized. And that's the time to actually set the habits too. So when I was 6, I grew up on a dairy farm, and I used to organize even my pet cats. It was just, they never stayed put, but it was really at a young age I started. And I do believe that it's part due to my Swiss roots. The Swiss are very organized, and I like to bring a lot of what they offer to my clients in Canada too.
Well, it's interesting because you bring up childhood, and a lot of us have kids at home, like you said, working from home. Trying to organize all that chaos is really, really tough. So you're suggesting that we set up some sort of daily calendar that keeps us all kind of in sync?
Well, it's a great question, especially now everybody's lives have changed, of course. And with kids especially, I don't have them myself, but I've done a lot of research as well when I wrote Decluttering for Dummies on kids' habits. And now is a great time, if you do have kids, to start them on that track. Maybe it is a calendar because you do have to manage their virtual classes and also after school activities that they have in virtually whatnot. So a great time to get kids organized a bit on their schedules, and also where they put things, where their masks will go at the entryway. If they have specific toys, what ones do they use and not use, and start decluttering that. Get them in the mentality for donating, right? And less stuff around them. All of these will really help as they get older.
Yeah, you mentioned Decluttering for Dummies. That's one of your 2 or 3 books you have.
That's my second book. Yeah, 2 books.
Your second book. And you're also in the Forbes Council, which is interesting because not only are you helping people with their homes and their condos or whatever, but there's also a business aspect to this. Since we are working from home, like I realized I didn't have a place to put all of my folders and business papers, and they're just kind of stacked in a corner. And that is not a good thing, because when I go to look for something, I can't always readily find it. You should see my computer. Forget that.
Oh, no. Yeah, and that's why I call myself actually a life biz organizer, because I believe we should treat our home and our life like a business as well. And of course, I have a lot of business experience, so I like to help entrepreneurs organize the back end of their business too. So it's kind of evolved my own coaching programs. And Decluttering for Dummies is written, you mentioned digital clutter. One of the biggest things we face now is digital clutter. Our lives are cluttered digitally. We turn on our computers, we look at our phones. It's becoming quite an issue. So I spend a lot of time too with my clients on everything from email decluttering to social profile decluttering, all of that.
So I think around 5 or 6, I became kind of I didn't realize this, kind of an organized kid. And so I've carried that throughout my life, and it has served me well, especially in broadcasting when you have to be on time. You can't mess with the clock. The clock is always ticking, and so you're always aware of that. But it seems to me that what we have going on here is like a release of some kind of endorphin when you've accomplished something that says, hey, I organized the kitchen, or I organize my sock drawer. It doesn't matter what you organize. There is a sense of accomplishment, right?
Oh, 100%. And I like how you mentioned organize something, because a lot of people are overwhelmed. We don't know where to start, right? We walk into our houses and we have this stressful feeling because the whole house is disorganized, we think. But just even in your email or your digital file. So start with one area, and that really can give you that sense of accomplishment to keep going into the next. Don't do it all at once. 10 minutes a day with your sock drawer, and then move to your shirts, and then move to your computer, whatever it may be. So I say you should be doing it every day, but give yourself that little bit every day to feel that sense of accomplishment.
The other thing I found is that like one of my favorite stores is the Container Store. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like heaven for people who want to be organized. But there's a caveat to that. The caveat is you buy boxes to store stuff that you don't need.
If you read my first book, that's exactly what I advise against. Especially after the holidays, we get a lot of stuff and people are like, oh, I'm going to go to the Container Store to organize it all, which is great, but you don't want to organize stuff that you're never going to use. So decluttering should be your first step before you buy the boxes.
One of the things my kids did with their kids was when they got Christmas gifts, the old Christmas gifts were put in a container that was to be given away to Goodwill or some other area like that, so that they were learning to move forward with new things and new thoughts and new ideas and new toys, and then give, which is, I thought, kind of a cool idea. I never thought of that myself.
I love that idea. And that's a great way to get kids in already starting to donate, right? And that thought process, like if you get a gift, give a gift, right? Or perhaps even one of the biggest challenges for parents is the stuff just comes into their house from birthday parties, from, toys from their grandparent, like gifts all the time. So instead of saying, to have a birthday party, instead of gifts, why don't you say, we're going to donate to this charity, or we're going to do this experience. So already changing the mindset of your kids as well about always getting stuff.
And what should I do to declutter my head? That's the last question for you. Do we have enough time for that?
Well, that's a big topic. And mental decluttering is the first thing I say is, look at your space, get rid of what you don't need around you, especially in the office, start with that. And then try to focus only on one task at a time. So I use a time cube to keep on track because we're distracted mentally all the time. And if we move from task to task, we're never going to get anything accomplished and we're going to lose that focus. So those are my 2 quick tips for mental decluttering in a nutshell.
Well, if you want to get more than a nutshell, go to organizedjane.com. She's got all kinds of great information. And Jane, thanks so much. It was very refreshing talking to you, and I'm hoping now to get more organized.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's a pleasure being here.